always have to dry these off right away or they start to discolor and stain. Beautiful knives. Thank you. Alright, this whole time I've had a low heat on this. I'll turn it up a pinch. Add a little oil to it. Might have been a little moisture in that bottle. Okay. While that's heating up, I've got this chicken here. I'm going to use a pair of tongs just to get this chicken ready so I don't cross-contaminate during this demo. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to season it pretty heavily. Why is it okay to kind of season it heavily here? What's that? It doesn't fall into the oil, but what's after the oil? The braising with the liquid, right? So where's it going to go? A lot of it dissolves into the liquid. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So you can get pretty hefty on that seasoning, especially if you're braising. Because if you're braising like a big chunk of meat, is the middle seasoned? No. So, therefore, you can season pretty heavily. Okay. Now, when you guys do your stews, because we don't have a chance to do a stewing demo in this this particular dough, you can dredge your beef, the little cubes, and then shake it out in a sifter, and it just coats it really well and it gets the flour out. Okay. In this case, though, because I have a large piece, I'm going to dredge it. Again, I'm using tongs just because I don't want to get chicken all over my hands while I'm doing this demo. Okay. And then shake off all that excess flour. Which side should I lay down first? Why? Well, there's presentation. There's also something else on the skin. What's the skin loaded with? Fat. So don't I want the rendering side to go down first? Okay, so I'm going to drop that in there. Now, a couple things. One, my pan is starting to discolor in the back. Do you see that? Okay. I have to manage my pan. And that means I may sometimes have to rotate my pan. I may have to adjust my heat. If there's another pan here or here, then it could start burning in the back. If you start getting wisps of white smoke and a little bit of a burn, then what you do is you take the chicken, you rub the spot, adjust the heat, make sure you're centered on the burner. Sometimes you're like over here or really close and you don't realize that you're burning in the back because you're not centered, okay? Also, this particular size pan, which you'll be using a lot in here, isn't as big as the burners. The burners are bigger. And so that means that they're going to come up the side a lot, which requires scouring later on. So anyway, I'm just browning my chicken. No big deal here. What kind of color am I looking for? Right. And so I'm using my tongs. I'm rubbing those spots out, and I'm looking for a golden brown crust. Almost there. Now, this pair of tongs has raw chicken on it, right? So am I going to use this when they come out of the oven later? Are you going to use these same tongs? No. So these tongs are going to be washed in between uses. Oh, I've got three tongs. You guys can also separate your legs from your drumps from your thighs when you go to braise if you'd like. It's up to you, depending on how much chicken. We have a full class, so you probably want to separate them so you all get a piece. Okay, I had a spot over there developing, so I rubbed it out. Here's another spot. I'm going to rotate the pan so you can see it. Do you see that spot developing on the edge? That's going to be a burn spot in a minute if I let it go. So I'm going to take the chicken and rub it out. Look, disappear. Right? That's called managing your pan. Think of your pan as like driving a car. When you drive a car, do you just push your foot on the pedal until you run into a wall as hard as you can, as fast as you can? No, you have to like reverse. You have to pull out. You have to stop at the stop sign. Start to speed up to get on the highway, and then go fast, and then slow down and get off again. Cooking is the same way with the burner. You turn the burner up when you need to cook faster. Turn it down when you need to manage the heat. Okay? And the pan needs to be just like a car. Turning a car, rotate the pan as needed, adjust the pieces, manage your pan. You're in charge here, so nothing should burn, if you're attentive to your pan. There's no excuse for it. You're right there. Why would you let it burn? And if you do accidentally burn it, what do you think the correct actions are?
Do it again.
What's that?
Do it over again.
Yeah, wipe out the pan, Before you add any vegetables, don't continue on with a burned pan or else everything's going to taste burned. I'm going to flip the chicken over now. See that nice color? That's the kind of color we're looking for there. Okay, I'm rubbing these spots as I go. We got some nice rendering out of that chicken fat too. And you can see I have some nice fat in the pan from my corn oil and then from some rendered chicken fat. If this was, say, duck, I'd get a lot more fat out of it during this step. In different meats, you may have to help them. If it's a leaner meat, you may need to add a little bit more oil to it. If I had lots of batches to do, like when I'm stewing, then they suck up, the flour sucks up a little bit of fat each time. So you may wind up having to add fat as you cook. Okay? So once I have a good amount of color here, remember this was my flour pan, right? So I can put my chicken right back in there. Is this chicken cooked? No, so why can't it go back in the same pan? Okay, pan's there. Okay, turn my heat down a little bit. I'm going to add my aromatics. Now, garlic can go in now, but garlic burns in 18 seconds. So what should I do about that? What do I need to add before it burns in 18 seconds? My onions to cool off the oil and to get the garlic sort of protected by the amount of onion there. Okay. This is also the time that I want to add my aromatics. Not just these aromatics, but my herbs here. I have some bay leaves. Always count how many bay leaves you put in. I have 3.5 because that's how many I have to pull out. This time's on stem, which means I have to pick it out later. I have 4 pieces in there, 5 pieces, and so I know what to pull out in a bit. If, when I add my vegetables, this pan's dry and I don't hear sizzling, what do I add?
More oil.
More oil. Just a little more oil and you're going to hear more sizzling, right? When you're searing your meat, if you don't hear anything and it's starting to just get black, what's that tell you? Add more oil, right? More fat. Okay, I'm going to turn my heat back up. Oh, no wonder it turned off. Looks like, watch these burners. When you have them on low, they just kick out suddenly, okay? Next dense item, celery can go in. I didn't need all of it. And that carrot. That's a braise. All that stuff's coming out later. It's going to be stringed out. Add a little more fat to this. Now, next step is an optional step. If I want to add a little bit of flour to this, I'm going to have a thicker gravy in the end. And that's exactly what I want to do. So while my vegetables are sauteing in this fat, I can take my spoon, before I throw this chicken flour away, I can use it here. Because obviously you can't reuse chicken flour, except in this case I can use it right away to thicken my dish. So 2 spoonfuls is plenty for me. And stir that around. It's going to make a roux right with the vegetables. Make sure you get every last white lump out, or else when you add liquid, what are you going to have? Lumps. And so I'm going to get all those out. And now what's the next step? What do I do whether I added flour or not? What's next?
Add the sauce.
Not sauce. The glaze, right? So I need to take my acid or my alcohol. I'm going to pull it right off the heat. I'm going to add a little bit of sherry here. Not much of a fire because I didn't really have a lot of temperature. But if that was cognac, big poof, right? Okay, you don't need a lot of the alcohol here. Stir it in. Once it pastes up from the flour dissolving into it, then you can start slowly adding your stock. When you go to add your stock, that's the time to get this chicken back in here. And then, what was the rule for amount of liquid? 1/3 to halfway, okay? I'm going to go ahead and add that. Here you could use chicken stock, or if you want it really deep, you could use either a gloss version of a chicken stock, or you could even go veal if you wanted to. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this a bit. And it needs to come to a full simmer again. I'm also scraping with my spoon to make sure that nothing's stuck on the bottom. I want to lift all that fond up, right? Here I'm also going to add a little more salt to the pan. and a little more pepper. And I'll stir those in. Now that I'm simmering, I'm going to turn it down for a second while I get this all together. Make sure that pepper doesn't stay on that chicken. I'm just wiping it away. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this thing up after cartouching it. So to cartouche, you're going to take a piece of parchment, you're going to fold it in half. You ever do a snowflake, like as a kid? Same thing. So you're kind of imagining there's a circle here. Cut the circle in half, fold it in half again. So now we have a quarter circle. And again, we keep doing basically a pie chart in the air, right? It's a circle here. And just keep folding and folding and folding. Okay, from there, I have this cone, measure from the center to the inside edge, rip, open up, what do I have? Cartouche, okay? Cartouche goes down, keeps the surface from evaporating. You can see that I've got a pretty thick sauce already, so I definitely don't want evaporation taking place. When I take this out of the oven later, if it's too thick, I can add a little stock, no big deal. It's all about controlling that and monitoring it. Could I have the foil, please? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Next thing you guys are going to do is you're going to hotel wrap this if you don't have a lid. Hotel wrap is basically where you wrap the entire thing up like a casserole. So, can I borrow your step towel again? This whole pot's going to go right here. I might need it again in a second. And you do it like a big takeout container, okay? Am I going to have evaporation issues? No. Heck no, I'm not. The whole thing's wrapped in foil. Tighten that down with a towel. Now, when you put this in the oven, be careful of the racks. Sometimes they tear the foil. And of course, you want to label it because once you get in the oven, everyone's looks the same, right? You can use your group number or just your name, all right? Ha, 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 ha. All right, I'm going in the oven, 350. This is chicken, right? It's tender already. It doesn't have to get into the 180, 210 range. It just needs to get to 165 because these birds were killed a couple weeks after they were born, sadly. What that tells us, though, is we're looking at 45 minutes tops, okay? If this was a beef stew, it could go for 45 to an hour and a half, depending on how big you cut it up and what cut it is. Those things matter. If it was like a big beef braise, and you're talking about 4 hours to 8 hours. If it's veal shanks, it could go 8 hours, okay? So I'm going in the oven with this. You guys report to your stations. We'll start divvying out chicken. And then if anyone wants any of this mise en place, they can take it. I still need this table, though, to do the rice pilaf demo. Once you're in the oven, rice pilaf demo begins. Okay?